Hello, mortals. I am the BookTube Goddess, the #1 drag queen booktuber on YouTube. For Shelve It or Shove It, one of the books I picked was The Invisible Life of Addie Larue by V.E. Schwab. Now, I'm familiar with V.E. Schwab because I really enjoyed the Darker Shades of Magic trilogy, and so I was hopeful for another excellent fantasy series, but boy, was I in for a surprise. By the way, if you are familiar with my videos, make sure you give this one a thumbs up. And if you aren't a subscriber, what am I, invisible to you? Now, getting back to V.E. Schwab, I wasn't that impressed with her middle grade City of Ghosts series, but again, Darker Shades of Magic was very enjoyable, and I was really impressed with the imaginative world building, the 4 dimensions of London. What was there? White, gray, black, red. And not to mention, the characters were great, and so was the villain. Anyway, I highly recommend that series. But we're talking about The Invisible Life of Addie Larue. This book was not what I was expecting. This is a completely different type of book than what I've come to expect from V.E. Schwab, and to put it bluntly,
I was completely blown away.
Now, I understand why this was marketed as a fantasy book. V.E. Schwab has built a reputation as a fantasy writer, and the publisher, of course, wants to market it to her fan base. But if this was a first-time author, I am sure this would have been marketed under general fiction or literary fiction. Now, this is a type of book that becomes a classic. This is a type of book that an author is known for long after all her other books are forgotten. The concept is unique, the writing is gorgeous, and the story is
deep.
You really find yourself contemplating what it means to be alive, what's important in life, what relationships mean. I mean, there are so many layers that you really want to take your time reading this just to give yourself the space to think. Okay, so while I guess technically this is a fantasy in the broad sense of the word, I would more call this a contemporary fairy tale. Addie Larue was born in the early 1700s and is destined to live out her days in a small town in France, marrying someone she doesn't love, having children that tie her down, and never seeing anything of the outside world. Now, there is an old wise woman who prays to the old gods, the gods of nature, and warns against praying to the gods of night, or at night. At night or of night. Anyway, don't pray at night. And you can kind of see where this is going. Addie is desperate to be free of what society and family is forcing her to become. And she will do anything, give up anything for this freedom. You can see where this is going. She attracts the attention of an old god, a dark god that she prays to at night. And she strikes a bargain to be free, of course, at the cost of her soul. And with all such bargains, think Faust, what Addie actually gets is a terrible curse. And it's one of the most terrible curses that you can imagine. Basically, everyone continuously forgets who she is. This kind of reminds me of that Drew Barrymore and Adam Sandler movie, 50 First Dates, where Drew Barrymore's character has some type of brain damage where she forgets everything that's happened to her during the day, and she wakes up each morning not knowing anyone she's met during the previous day. For Addie Larue, it's kind of the reverse, where everyone wakes up forgetting everything about her. And it's even worse than that. Just being out of sight of a person makes them forget who she is. And the curse runs much deeper. Addie isn't even able to leave any mark in the world that she was there. Oh, she also is immortal. She will never die, she never gets sick, and she's perpetually 23 years old. Now, the dark god who cursed her will only take her soul when she admits that she is tired of living. Now let that sink in. How long would you last, never able to form any relationships, not able to work or make money, never able to have anything of permanence? Even a room to sleep in for the night is a luxury. So you live day to day stealing and just observing the lives of other people. The longest relationship is a one-night stand when the person you sleep with forgets who you are the next morning. So how long would you last? A year? 10 years? 100 years? Addie Larue is nothing if not stubborn, which is basically why she lives like this for 300 years. She lives to spite the dark god who cursed her. But then she meets a man in New York in the present day who remembers her. Is the story now a romance? Well, you'll have to read it to find out. I really love the story and the writing. This is well written, in my opinion. It's in the first person present tense, so there is an immediacy to everything that's happening. Now you know, I've said before that flashbacks can be overdone, and it may surprise you to learn that even though the chapters flip back and forth between modern day and earlier in Addie's life, I think it was necessary to really give the reader the sense of how much time has passed in Addie's life and how hopeless and impotent Addie's life really is. You can't really tell the story linearly because the reader will get bored to tears halfway through. And yes, the structure does make the pacing at times feel slow. Because when you are engaged in Addie's relationship with Henry, who is the young man who remembers her, it can be frustrating to suddenly find yourself 200 or 300 years earlier in the next chapter. But again, looking at the story overall, I think it's necessary because these past glimpses of her life make you appreciate what she's going through in the present and reinforces and makes you understand just how bleak her life has been. Okay, now there's one thing I'm not really talking about, and that's Addie's relationship to the dark god who cursed her. That's really a running theme throughout the story, but I just don't want to talk about it because I really want you to read this book and find out for yourself, because I think that's truly memorable. So yes, I give this book my blessing. Are you kidding me? This is one of the best books I've read in a long time. Now, saying that, it may not be one of the books I've enjoyed the most because, frankly, I enjoy faster-paced, more traditional stories, but I can certainly recognize a great book when I read it. And yes, I think this is going to be considered a great book, and I am so glad that I read it. Now, I am sure this is going to be a movie someday. It'll be the Benjamin Button of our time, and I can only imagine that it will make some young actress famous, assuming they cast a young Meryl Streep or Toni Collette in the role of Addie. Anyway, I know I won't forget Addie Larue, and I bet you won't either. Until we meet again, may all the books you read be blessed.